Hi there, and welcome back to another video of Expert.js. My name's Abrar, and I'm going to be your instructor for this video. In this video, we're going to be talking about array properties and methods. Now, in the previous video, we talked about arrays. We talked about what arrays are and how they work. Now, just like numbers, strings, booleans, and almost every other object in JavaScript, arrays have different properties and methods available that make using and handling arrays a lot easier in JavaScript. So let's take a look. So first, let's create an array. This array will have 3 items. All of them are strings and they are A, B, and C respectively. And we'll assign this array as the value to the variable letters. So variable letters contains the array with items A, B, and C. Now, just like strings have a length property, arrays have a length property as well. In the case of arrays, the length property will tell you how many items or elements are there inside the array. So the array's length property always contains a number that'll tell you how many items are there inside the array. In this case, the array letters have 3 items, A, B, and C. So letters.length returns 3. You can use the length property to do some pretty cool tricks. For example, here's a fun way of retrieving the very last item in any array. In order to retrieve the very last item of the letters array, you can type in letters and then in square brackets letters.length minus 1. Now for the letters array, the last element is the string C, and the string C has the index 2. So letters and square brackets 2 should give us the last element. Now letters.length is 3, so letters.length minus 1 means 3 minus 1 or 2, and this works for any array. And that's because any array's length property contains the number of how many items are there inside the array. And because the counting starts from 1 and all the way up to the last element, if you minus 1 from this number, then you get the index of the last element, which you can put inside the square brackets in order to access the element. So in this case, letters.length minus 1 means 3 minus 1 or 2. And when you put 2 inside the square bracket in letters, that means letters square bracket 2 or the last element, which is C. Now you can also use this to add an item at the very end of the array. Now currently the array has 3 items with index 0, 1, and 2. Now if we wanted to add another item, that would probably be on index 3. And we can use the letters.length property in order to find that index, because letters.length property contains 3, which is the index that we need. So letters and square brackets letters.length equals D, which means we're adding another element, the string D, on the index 3 of this array, which means at the very end. And now the letters array contains 4 elements, A, B, C, and D respectively. Now for our next example, let's start with the same array. Var letters equals A, B, and C. 3 strings, 3 items in the letters array. Now letters have a shift method, which you can use to remove the very first item from the array. So letters.shift, and then if you type in parentheses, which means to execute the method, it'll return A, which is the first element. But it actually mutates or changes the main array. So by using the shift element in the letters array, you have removed the first element, which is A. So now the letters array only contains B and C. So if you type in letters, then as you can see, previously it was A, B, and C, but now it only contains the strings B and C. The first string, or the string A, has been removed. So you can use the shift method to remove the first item from any array. Now if we use the shift method again on the letters array, then B will be removed and only C will be left. And if we use letters.shift final time, then the C string will be removed as well and the array will be empty. In other words, the letters.shift method removes the element with index 0 inside the array, which is the first element. Now the opposite of the shift method is the unshift method. Makes sense, right? The unshift method can be used to add a new item at the start of the array. So letters.unshift, and of course because you're adding a new item, you need to specify what that item is inside the parentheses as a parameter. So in this case we want the new item to be the string new. So letters.unshift new will add the string new as the first element in place of A. So now the letters array contains 3 elements, new, B, and C. So you can use the unshift method to add a new element at the very start of the array. And you can do it as many times as you want. The new items will be added and all the other items will be pushed back. Now for our next example, let's have an array 1, 2, 3. And let's assign it to the variable n. So variable n equals the array 1, 2, 3. Now similar to the shift method, we also have the pop method. So n.pop actually removes the last element from the array. So it's kind of like the counterpart of the shift method. The shift method removes an element from the start of the array, and the pop method removes an element from the end of the array. So n.pop should remove the element at the very end. And now the n array contains only the elements 1 and 2. So the last element, or 3, has been removed from this array. And that's how the pop method works. You can use the pop method to pop out or remove the very last element from an array. And similar to the shift method, if you use the pop method again on the n array, then 2 will be removed and only 1 will be left. And the opposite of the pop method is the push method. The push method can be used to add an item at the very end of the array. And of course, you have to specify the element value inside the parentheses as a parameter. So n.push 2.5 will add 2.5 at the very end of the array. And as you can see, it is true because now the n array contains 1, 2, and 2.5 has been added at the very end in the place of 3. So you can use the pop method to remove the item from the end of the array, and the opposite push method to push an item at the end of the array. These two methods are counterparts of the shift and the unshift method. Now for our next example, let's have a variable ABC with an array ABCD. So we have an array with 4 elements, 4 strings, A, B, C, and D respectively, and we're assigning it to the variable named ABC. Now a very cool method for arrays is the splice method. Now the splice method is very powerful, as you'll see in just a moment. The splice method can be used to remove items from an array. It can be used to add items to an array. It can also be used to remove and add items simultaneously to an array when used correctly. So the splice method is actually very powerful and very capable. First, we'll look at the removing feature of the splice method. Now if you specify only one parameter, then the splice method can be used to remove elements from an array. Now in this case, the parameter inside the parentheses tells JavaScript where to start the splice, or where to start removing the elements. This is the index of the first removed element. And if you don't specify anything else, JavaScript will continue removing the elements from the starting index to the very end of the array. So in this case, abc.splice2 means we're starting the splice at index 2. And because we're not specifying anything else, the splice will continue up until the end of the array, which means the element with index 2 will be removed, and all elements after that until the very end of the array will be removed as well. Now for the ABC array, index 2 means the third element, or the string C. So the splice will start at string C and will continue until the end of the array, which means the string C will be removed and the string D will be removed as well, leaving us with only A and B. And if you double check with typing in ABC, as you can see, the array now only contains the elements A and B, but not C and D, because abc.splice2 means we're starting the splice at index 2, which is the third element, the string C, and we're continuing the splice until the very end of the array. So the element C and anything after that has been removed, and only the first few elements are remaining. Now let's redefine the ABC array again. So ABC equals the new fresh array A, B, C, and D. Now you can specify how many items to remove with the splice method. So if you don't specify anything, it'll start removing the elements until the very end. But you can specify an optional second parameter that tells you how many elements to remove. So in this case, abc.splice1, 2 means the splice will start at index 1 and it'll remove 2 elements including index 1. So in this case, ABC contains the elements A, B, C, and D, the strings, and abc.splice1, 2 means the splice will start at index 1. Now index 1 is the second element, or the string B, which means string B will be removed, that's the first one, and then we have another element to remove because we want to remove 2 total elements. So the string B will be removed and the string C will be removed as well. These 2 elements will be removed, and that's what we're specifying in the second optional parameter. So we're starting the splice at index 1 and we're removing 2 elements, index 1 and index 2, which means the strings B and C. And now the ABC array only contains the elements A and D because B and C have been removed. So as you can see, using the splice method, you can start a splice at the specific index and continue on until the very end of the array, removing all the elements, or you can start a splice at a specific index and only removing a specific number of elements and leaving all others intact. Now for some more powerful examples of splice, let's have our ABC array once again. So var ABC equals A, B, C, and D, the strings. Now in this case, you can type in abc.splice 2, 0, and then new to actually add an element inside the array. So in this case, the first parameter tells us where the splice will start. In this case, the splice will start at index 2, or the string C in this case, which is the third element. So the second parameter again tells us how many items to remove. In this case, we've actually inputted 0 as our second element, which means no items will be removed. So by inputting 0 as the second element, you can actually tell JavaScript not to remove any elements. And in this case, the splice method will only add elements and not remove them. So the splice starts at index 2, which is the string C. It removes no items, but it adds a new item, the string new, at the index 2. So the resulting ABC array looks like this. So as you can see, currently the ABC array contains the strings A, B, and then at index 2, the element new has been added, and then C and D. So no items have actually been removed in this case. We're just starting the splice at index 2, we're removing 0 elements, which means we're not actually removing any elements, and then at index 2, we're adding the string new as a new element. So in this case, the resulting array is A, B, new, C, and D. Of course, you can add as many elements as you want from the starting index. So in this case, abc.splice 4, 0, new 2, and new 3, which means we're adding 2 new elements, new 2 and new 3, starting at index 4. So the resulting array looks like this. So now we have A, B, new, C, new 2, new 3, and then D. Now previously, the array only had A, B, new, C, and D. But now we're starting the slice again at index 4. Now index 4 is the very last element on the string D in this case. So we're starting the splice at index 4, we're removing 0 elements, and we're adding 2 new elements starting at index 4, which means the 2 new elements are added in between C and D. And this is how you can use the splice method in order to add one or multiple new elements at any index inside the array. So just for recap, this is what our ABC array looks like right now. We have A, B, new, C, new 2, new 3, and then D. Now you saw the splice method remove all or a specific number of elements from a specific index. You also saw how you can use the splice method to add new elements. Now the splice method, with some clever parameter settings, can also be used to add and remove elements simultaneously in one operation. For example, if we have abc.splice 3, comma 1, comma new 1, which means we're starting the splice at index 3, which in this case is the string C, which is the fourth element. So we're starting the splice at index 3, or the string C. We're removing one element. The second parameter specifies how many elements we want to remove. So we're removing one element, which means we're removing the string C element itself. And in that place, on index 3, we're adding a new element, new 1. And now our ABC array looks like this. So now, as you can see, the fourth element, or the string C, has been removed and is replaced with new 1. So in this case, the full array is A, B, new, new 1, new 2, new 3, and then D. So using the splice method, you can specify where to start the splice, how many items to remove, and what new element or elements to add in their place.